Well, good evening, Cedar Falls, and welcome to the Standing Committee meeting of Monday, August 21st. And I will now call this meeting to order and ask for a roll call from Madam Clerk.
Schultz.
Here.
DeBoer. Here. Cruz.
Here.
Harding.
Here.
Ganfield. Sires.
Here.
Dunn. Here. Councilmember Ganfield absent.
Thank you. All right, we have three things on the Community Development Committee agenda tonight, and we're going to start with Cedar Falls Economic Development Corporation with a presentation from the Executive Director, Mr. Jim Brown. Welcome.
Thank you, Chairman Simon. I'm up first because I'm on the agenda listed that way, but if you'll beg my forgiveness, I'm just going to have Dr. Nook say a few words. I'll come up after him if that's okay.
No problem.
Thanks.
Welcome, President Nook.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you and to talk a little bit about the Cedar Falls Economic Development Corporation. First of all, it's great to see Noah back and all the other students around here. I had an opportunity to visit with Noah while he was out in Washington, D.C., and really great to see him learning that way and engaged in politics the way he is. Thanks, Noah. You know, the Cedar Falls Economic Development Authority Commission, I come from a city that used to have the authority instead of the council, so I'll mess that up every once in a while. But I want to talk a little bit about the why and why I'm involved with the Cedar Falls Economic Development Council and why I see it as being really important to our community. As you look at the city and what we're doing, we know we need to grow. Every city needs to continue to grow, or you end up not existing after very long. As I've worked on economic development corporations, authorities in other cities, what I found is that they're uniquely positioned to help grow businesses and to grow the infrastructure needed for businesses. City councils are the place where the rules around zoning and the policies need to be made, but who goes out and recruits those businesses? Who goes out and makes sure that the infrastructure is in place in terms of buildings, in terms of other infrastructure pieces that they need, electrical, those sorts of things. And everywhere I've been, that's been either the chamber or the chamber and an economic development corporation. Those entities care a great deal about what is being developed and who's going to move into those spaces. Without an economic development corporation, cities our size and larger often stagnate because there isn't somebody that's out there really looking for how do we get new businesses in, what do those new businesses look like, where are the areas in our community that we can grow. And it is a very collaborative venture, working closely with city council and the zoning laws that are in place and the way that the elected officials are seeing the growth, where the growth is going to happen. But how do you really get those people in there? How do you make sure you've got the development in those places to attract the businesses and to attract the kinds of businesses that the city is really interested in? Who does that now? At the Cedar Falls Economic Development Corporation, what I really like about it is its diversity. There's some developers in there that understand those things, but we also have people that are bankers that know how to finance not just the developments, but finance new businesses and the growth of our community in a realistic way. We also have people from the Cedar Falls Utility on the board that help us see what's going to happen, and they know then where things might be going. So it's a real partnership between the city, the Economic Development Corporation, the chamber, in our case, Grow Cedar Valley, and really building this synergy around the growth of the community that's sustainable, that has a lot of input from a lot of different places, and that in this case doesn't depend on an election, which can happen from time to time. We know that this group, I know that working with this group and similar groups in other cities, that they provide this ability to reach out to new businesses, get new businesses to see what is available, and also to be able to build what comes next and to go out and attract the kinds of businesses that community needs. So one of the reasons that I'm fired up about the new Cedar Falls Economic Development Corporation, it's only been around a couple of years, but it gives our city an opportunity to really have an impact and have sustained growth and managed growth, which is really, really important. One of the other reasons I'm very interested in this is when you look around the university, there's a lot going on. College Hill has had a development plan in place. We need to make sure that's going. But as the new high school is built, it's pretty clear that there's going to be some development happening to the west of the campus, on our western edge of campus, and on out towards Union. What's that going to look like? That's a zoning question to begin with. What are those properties going to be zoned? And many of them have already been zoned. But then how do you get them to develop? How do you get developers interested in building the kinds of buildings and structures that we will need for the kinds of businesses and or housing developments that happen in that? Oftentimes, that isn't organized in smaller cities. The way it gets organized oftentimes is through a Cedar Falls, in this case, the Cedar Falls Economic Development Corporation. That's why I'm excited about being a part of it. I think there's a real opportunity here through this corporation to make a difference in making sure we've got good sustainable growth. We've got the amenities we need, working with the council, and we've got an opportunity to reach out to businesses and industries and say, look at what's going on in Cedar Falls. And these are the people around that can help you put together what you need to do as a business here in the valley. So thank you for what you've done with the Cedar Falls Economic Development Corporation at this time. And we look forward to continuing to partner with you on the growth, sustainable growth of our city and community. Thank you.
Thank you, President Nook. And welcome back.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, President Nook. Excuse me. I was just going to run through a few of the goals and the goals and visions of the CFEDC, give you some highlights there as well for what's been happening, what we're looking at. As indicated a couple years ago, this is still a startup company. We've had very good reception from the business public, the public in general, as far as what we're doing, what we're looking at, what we're investigating. Very well received. In fact, this last spring, we did another little push for investors and got 8 folks. I think I talked to maybe 9 or 10 folks. So again, it's well received by those who are invested in our community already. We have now a board of directors of 30 individuals and an 8-member executive board. We have a new chair. We've celebrated our 2nd year just last month. So we have a new chair, Katie Susong. She was supposed to be a part of the trio this evening, and then her husband, though, is opening up a jewelry store on Brady Lynn. So we'll give her a pass. I think she's at capacity right now. Katie's wonderful. She's really good for the organization. She's a process type person. As you know, she's CEO of Cardinal Construction, but she's been able to put some things in place. She's worked on some things and now putting in place some various committees. So we have a communication committee, an advocacy committee, communications, and a project committee. And then breaking those down to various task forces, I think really is going to help. It's going to help me, honestly, as a director, to be able to gauge and guide those folks who are desiring to be a part of this, the CFEDC. So the 6 goals I told you last year, touching on all of them here, President Nook mentioned a couple of them, but early on it was the partnering. What does that look like for a startup company? Good conversations with you folks, good conversations with Grow Cedar Valley, make sure we weren't doing what Lisa was doing at Grow Cedar Valley, make sure we weren't doing exactly what Shane does at the city, but how can we complement all of our resources together and our competencies in moving the things forward. We've also mentioned before CFU, Cedar Falls Schools, and UNI. Those are really the representative of our partnership on our board. Carrie and her crew has been great partners. With City, as you well know, Shane and I visited the Netherlands this last fall. A couple Fridays ago, I was able to join Shane, Lisa, and this individual at this company for lunch with a company from the Netherlands, one of the companies we looked at and we talked to. And we were told that Cedar Falls is on the short list to have their U.S. operations be based in Cedar Falls. So just a great return on investment for all 3 organizations. All the approval process for Shane and I to go, and Lisa had some leads provided, but how many times would you do that every year to have what we call in sales a swing at the plate, to get a home run for landing such companies? That is exactly what it takes. We have monthly meetings and visits with city staff, very productive. Other partners, I don't think I'm missing anybody, but Community Main Street's an obvious, College Hill Partnership, Intercog, Visitors and Tourism. We like getting the heartbeat of who's coming and tourists, who's spending money at our establishments and staying at hotels and creating money for others, or capital. And then the Community Foundation, Cedar Falls Community Foundation, just a few of the partners we've got. Our goal 2 is incentivizing University Avenue. I don't think it was a secret we were trying to get the mall in local ownership. That's on pause right now. It's a whole different world. So we'll just sit tight according to those who are experts in that world and see what happens. But I think the question now is, do we look at incentivizing that corridor? We spent tens of millions of dollars. It's an award-winning corridor. If you drive down right now, you'll see maybe some rough areas. We got to make sure we hold that at bay. And I think we're talking to incentivizing that corridor might do that. The 3rd goal is supporting downtown. Not much has happened there, but there are ideas brewing, no pun intended, at least one. And I think we'll see a couple developments. Now the dust is clear, we'll probably see a couple developments popping up the next year or 2. As many of you know, there are plans to get potential plans, discussions to get a parking ramp downtown. If downtown's going to grow, maybe we need a parking ramp. But as you know, it has many purposes. Obviously parking, but you have first floor retail, potential top floors, commercial space, maybe residential, and it would look not like a parking ramp, at least as we see it. So we're keeping our eyes open, see if there's any opportunity to partner with the city along those lines. We have a very good track record of the public-private partnership for different developments downtown. The 4th is advocating for the College Hill zoning. Mentioned a minute ago, good conversations with Dr. Nook and his team, the College Hill Partnership, various neighbors and business owners down. Once funds are available for that zoning, we'd love to assist the conversation about what is possible. Big takeaways are that UNI desires to be involved in a big way and potentially expanding the vision and zoning we have around that area. Wouldn't that be exciting? Different areas maybe surrounding the campus. And ultimately, this is where the partnerships and conversations, I believe, really come to fruition later on, because we're trying to align the various plans we're discussing with a master plan with a company at a town, but to keep aligned with the Iowa Economic Development Authority, the IEDA. They have their funds that they dish out every year, and it's been known the next probably 2, 3 to 5 years, the funds they'll be dishing out will probably be tailored to what cities are doing with tourism. So there we go. We can kind of wrap your brain about what they're doing for those funds and what we're talking to the university about, and of course, the other stakeholders, including yourselves. The fifth goal is public relations to foster city growth. It included trips to various communities, just countless conversations with stakeholders, business owners, and team members of our board of directors, a great resource, and then meeting with other economic development corporations around the state. Find out what they're doing that probably wouldn't work with us, and if it is something that can match, let's not reinvent the wheel. Just a great circle of individuals and organizations that we are in constant contact. The last goal I'm mentioning is the housing. Quite a bit of conversations. We've all had that the last probably year, and of course, we've been asking, based off of the HNA, the housing assessment, now what? So collectively, we're working through our projects committee. We've also broken up some task forces, basically to where the HNA pointed to various recommendations. And I know there's concerns when that was coming forward, the 33 recommendations. You don't want to see all 33 right away, or maybe not some of them. We didn't either. So we're kind of joining this task force, picking out a few ideas that we can run with that we think match what the ultimate goal is of the assessment. We're informing Cedar Falls Housing Commission just last week, updating them on what we were doing, and the Human Rights Commission, as well. As you all know, they're the original organization you oversee that actually prompted the housing assessment. So keeping those folks up to date. We visited just a couple of communities last week. They're doing some pretty neat things that we can take a look at in terms of the various types of housing or dwellings. I mentioned a couple years ago with the Housing Trust Fund. Again, there are dollars that come from Des Moines that are pretty reliable the last 15 years that go to entities that have, or cities basically, that have a housing trust fund. We take those monies. We're probably a couple years away from gathering those dollars, but we started the process now. There's a process to create a housing trust board, and it's not through the CFEDC. We're kind of prompting the conversations, but again, I mentioned the Community Foundation. They're in discussions to help us with that. It would be its own entity, a housing trust fund, but they're the ones that proceed with getting these dollars, utilizing nonprofits in the Cedar Valley, and then enhancing housing, whether it's valuation, you can have a handicap ramp being built, infill areas. You can kind of think of the landscape that we're talking about with this kind of opportunity, probably from City Hall going south to the University Avenue, to University. Just a great way to enhance the dollars already coming in. Great meetings with staff on potential incentive ideas, keep pace with the surrounding communities. Very productive to rely on experts, staff input. Their history, the historical perspective they bring to the table, and of course their crystal ball that they have as far as seeing what things might be coming. Of course, if any of this moves forward, it's a transparent way, obviously being here updating, different things that come before the council, both public and transparent. And I'd like to convey our goal, as I mentioned even 2 years ago, is not to come to you folks year after year for capital. Again, it's a startup organization. We're doing well. But to keep that sustainability going and the momentum going, it's good to have the city as a partner. We also don't believe that we're lone rangers on these plans, these visions, and these goals. We've looked heavily into what the city already has. As you know, we mentioned this a couple years ago, we had the Future Forward 2025 plan that we looked at. Last year's goal setting for you folks, what you guys decided to do moving forward. Mayor Green had a matrix for Cedar Falls development. How is it doing business in Cedar Falls? And of course, the countless conversations to see how we can move the city forward in a positive way, long-term thinking and long-term goals to make it work for everybody. So again, thank you for your time this afternoon. Pleasure to update you.
Thank you. I'll open it up to council, see if we have any questions for either President Nook or Mr. Brown. Anyone? Looks like you get off the hook tonight. No hard questions or anything.
That
So
sounds good.
thanks
Thank
for
you,
the update. Appreciate it. All right, now we get to move on to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee transition to a commission. And I believe the city planner, Chris Seavey, is up. Did I say your last name right?
Yes, CV.
That's what I thought,
Yep.
just making sure.
Thank you, Chair Harding. Good evening, council members. I appreciate the opportunity to address you today and discuss the proposal to elevate the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee to a standing border commission. Since as far back as their 2016 annual report, one of the priority recommendations of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, that's a mouthful, Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, has been to elevate the committee to a standing commission. This recommendation has been noted by the mayor and council and was considered at the most recent goal setting, where staff was directed to prepare the proposal for council's formal consideration. In collaboration with different departments and with the city attorney and also with the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, with the committee, I'm going to shorten it from here on out. Staff has prepared a code amendment and bylaws which are included in the packet for this meeting and also for the council packet for council tonight. I will not cover every topic in the code and bylaws, but will briefly touch on relevant points. The proposed bylaws define the mission of the new commission, Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission, as follows. To improve the quality of life, general health, safety, and welfare in Cedar Falls through the increased opportunity for safe walking, bicycling, and other active modes as viable means of transportation and physical and recreational activity. This is similar to the current mission of the committee as currently constituted. Of all the items in the proposed code and bylaws, most are standard language and are indicative of codes and bylaws used by other boards and commissions. The especially unique language to consider today are the powers and duties that you, as a legislative body, would grant or delegate to this new commission. In that spirit, I will go over each point in that section. The first is to adopt rules governing the commission's organization and procedure as may be deemed necessary. This is standard language which grants the right to adopt bylaws and make changes to them by vote of the commission. Bylaws cannot conflict with the ordinance or other applicable laws, but in every other respect, a commission may update or adopt bylaws that guide and govern how the commission operates. The next is to develop and provide resources and events to educate citizens and promote safety and well-being for pedestrians, cyclists, and users of other active transportation modes. The committee has been involved in articles for the Courier, articles for Currents, content for Channel 15, and educational events during May Bike Month and also at elementary schools. The commission will be expected to continue these efforts. The next is to enhance the economic development of the city by promoting the practical and recreational utility of the Cedar Falls pedestrian and bicycle networks. Our trail network has long been an important piece of attracting people to the city. In that vein, greater use by those that live here and greater discovery by those that visit has been a strong goal of the committee. The commission will be expected to continue that promotion, especially with the inclusion along the Great American Rail Trail and events such as Ragbri. The next is to promote feedback and recommendations to the city engineer regarding the usability and condition of current and proposed active transportation infrastructure and networks. This is a very practical role filled by the committee, where staff is made aware of issues and problems as they arise. The committee has also played an important role in the review and refinement of planned routes for construction, reconstruction, and also reconstruction in the city's capital improvements program. and within new subdivisions as they are being considered for approval. The Commission will be expected to continue that effort as solicited by city staff for all modes of active transportation, including both walking and biking. And lastly, to review and recommend to the city policies, programs, rules, and regulations related to active transportation modes. Also identify opportunities to seek recognition on behalf of the City of Cedar Falls for the exceptional aspects of the city's active transportation network. The committee has provided recommendations to city staff and council regarding how we should regulate the use of e-bikes. They have also provided feedback regarding scooter companies seeking to operate in Cedar Falls. As the landscape for active transportation modes changes, so too will policies, programs, rules, and regulations. The Commission will be expected to review and provide recommendations as new issues and questions arise. As for opportunities to seek recognition, they will be expected to continue the efforts in applying for our bicycle-friendly community status, among other designations that the city may qualify for. These designations make the city more aware of common best practices and typically come with recommendations of how to improve and upgrade our status. I should mention that the current iteration of the committee has no formal bylaws and is not established by code. Staff currently treats them as we do all other boards and commissions, and we abide open meetings laws because the committee often considers topics and issues relevant to public policy. However, there has been some confusion regarding appointment of members or term of membership. The proposed rules governing the Bicycle and Pedestrian Commission should fix much of that, and they are similar to those, and these are similar to the provisions for other boards and commissions. Bylaws and code cover areas such as membership, which we'd be proposing 7 members, which is the current makeup of the committee. Term of office would be 4 years. It also discusses topics such as the importance of meeting attendance, just the general administration of the committee or commission, and the conduct for public meetings and the keeping of public records, among other topics. The primary advantage to formalizing a commission is that the mayor can recommend members and the council can review and appoint persons to the commission with well-defined terms of service, a proper defined scope of responsibility, and expectations typical of all who serve on our boards and commissions. I should mention representatives of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee are present today, and I anticipate they will have public comments to make. As far as recommendation, the committee reviewed and discussed the proposed code language and bylaws at their August 1st meeting and unanimously requests approval of the ordinance amendment establishing the proposed commission. Again, the proposed language was a collaboration between divisions, including input from the city attorney. An important note here is that once applications for the new commission have been reviewed and members have been appointed, this will effectively dissolve the committee as currently constituted. With that, I am available for questions if you have any.
Thank you. All right, I'll open it up to council for questions. Yes, sir. Councilmember Schultz.
Mr. Seavey, how is the participation in the 7 members or the links that this has been a committee? Have you had difficulty in filling all the member positions? What I'm looking for is, this is going to be long-term, and we already struggle at times to fill positions in these spots. Do you foresee the sustainability of this being 7 or maybe even more people?
I don't anticipate any issues on that in that regard. It's a topic that plenty of people in the community are passionate about. Many of the members of the committee that we have currently have been on there for more than what would be a 4-year term. At one point, we had 11 members on the committee, and we had whittled that down to 7. We have a fairly consistent attendance from the members of the committee, with maybe a couple exceptions, but I anticipate we will have plenty of people that will want to serve.
What's the frequency of your meeting?
It's every month.
Once a month, okay. And then do you propose that these 4-year terms, you would start with Summit 4 and Summit 2 so that you're alternating?
Yes. In fact, there's some language in the bylaws that state that, or I think it's actually in the code, that state the staggering of the terms at the very beginning, so that we don't have more than, it actually states more than 3, yeah, that would expire in any given year.
Thank you.
All right, other council members have questions?
I do, I have a question.
Yes, Councilmember DeBeer.
So if this is passed, there would be no current members. They would all have to fill out applications and apply and be nominated by the mayor and appointed by the council? Is that correct? Okay.
And I have just one question. I read through it, and it pretty much seems it's more of a formalization. It would continue to essentially operate as it has been, and it won't take up more staff time. It's going to be basically the same thing, just more formal, and then with term limits and with the way we do other committees, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Yep. That was what I gathered. I just want to make sure I was correct from reading that. Other questions from council members? Are you looking for anything from us before I open it up to the public? Or I know it's on the council meeting later. I didn't know if you needed anything else from us. Or it was just a kind of a preface.
No, I guess something I should clarify is, as is typical of the formation of boards or commissions, this doesn't require a formal public hearing. It will be 3 readings at council, so it will be considered on 3 separate occasions before
All right.
it's officially passed.
Well, I'll open it up to the public if there's anyone who wishes to speak. All right. Come on up. Name and city for the record.
Good afternoon, Andrew Schroll, 930 Newman Avenue. I'm here with some of the other members of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee today. We're looking forward to this opportunity to bring the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee closer to our elected officials by becoming a commission. The proposed code and bylaws, as Chris walked through, bring clarity for everyone in the community in continuing the scope and mission, along with some improvements that he mentioned, such as the requirement to rotate officers for strong capabilities across commission membership. Engaged citizens have served in an official capacity, an official advisory capacity of some form or another since a task force was formed in 2007, and since the current advisory committee formation in 2013. We have a very productive relationship with city staff, and together we recently accomplished the large task of renewing the bicycle-friendly community status, which brings value to Cedar Falls through recognition and economic draw to the community, as well as continued improvements to both biking and walking. A core component is making sure that we are representing the needs of everyone in the community, such as children and safe routes to school. Another area is the rapid increase in use of e-bikes and e-scooters, and we acknowledge the new challenges and opportunities that they bring around mobility. So to sum it up, I personally feel that we are helping the city in important ways and therefore should have the same rigor and oversight from council as other commissions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this item? Welcome. Name and city for the record.
Name, Jack Yates. I'm a Cedar Falls resident, 519 Chateau Court, and I'm the vice chair of the current Bike Ped Committee. We discussed the idea of becoming a commission at length in several meetings, and we see several advantages. First of all, the makeup of the commission would continue to be engaged citizens, and I don't think we'll have any trouble finding the citizens who want to be on the commission. But it will mean that membership in the committee on the commission, as others have stated, would be something that the mayor and city council would be involved in selecting, and members would have defined terms. And we see those as good things. Commission meetings would be available, would be open to the public, and we would follow all of the open meeting rules. And I'm a big believer in open government, and I look forward to making sure that we follow all of those rules. We expect to have clear communication and command lines with the city. We've been very fortunate to have Chris Seavey as our liaison, and he's done a great job in keeping us in close contact with the city. So we expect to be able to continue that relationship. Walking and biking are increasingly important to citizens, not only of Cedar Falls, but across the country. You may have heard that you need to take 10,000 steps a day to stay healthy. I don't think there's any magic number, but recent research shows that you do have to be engaged in energetic movement almost every day to be healthy. We're talking something as important as food and water, energetic motion. So walking and biking are great ways of doing that. It's also a great alternative transportation. And it's great for family outings. I see whole families together walking and biking, which always, I like to see that. It's generally expected that this importance of walking and biking will continue to increase. There's a lot of evidence favoring it. And we're also very proud, like Andrew said earlier, that we were able to re-up our bronze status as a bike-friendly city. We want to continue to work on that. As somebody stated, the mission of the organization will not change. So I think we're happy with all of the ways that this will improve the commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? All right, I'll bring it back to council one more time. Any final questions before we move on to the next topic?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Sure, yeah.
I just want to really say I appreciate this. As a student, I know a lot of students, this puts them right over the edge when they're choosing a university or a community to stay in after they come to the university when it's a bike-friendly city, because it's nice to be accessible on campus, but they're going to want to go off campus, go to the hill, they're going to want to come to Main Street, and many don't have cars. So I just wanted to comment that this is a great idea, and I think it makes a lot of sense. So
thank you.
Thanks.
All right. We're going to move on now to the final topic, which is the comprehensive plan review. And before we have Chris Seavey do a presentation, I believe Director Stephanie Sheets is going to address and give us some updates.
Yeah, tonight's topic, and then in next month's council meetings, we'll have another topic. Both of these were referred by the council at goal setting, so I just thought I'd give a couple introductory comments about the difference of the two, just so that you have that in mind as you listen to the presentations here. So the purpose of a comprehensive plan, and Chris will cover a little bit of this tonight, is for long-term planning and zoning guidance that's based on community involvement in developing a vision and recommendations for the community. Much of the plan is policy-based, so he'll be talking about a lot of those different policies in the effort to ensure orderly development. And it is required by the state of Iowa that when we make zoning decisions, we do that in accordance with an adopted comprehensive plan. So there is some legal requirement to have a comprehensive plan. Now, at a September meeting, council will be hearing about an update on the Future Forward strategic plan, and you might be wondering, well, what's the difference between the two? There are a lot of similarities, and you'll find that both as you think about what Chris will present and then what I'll present in September about that. But so they can be very complementary, but a strategic plan identifies projects and initiatives that are intended to elevate focus areas of the plan and identify transformative opportunities. And so the strategic plan outcomes have the potential to result in broad and influential progress in Cedar Falls' quality of life, business climate, and quality of place. So that's just a little bit of the nuances of the two, as I'm sure you'll be kind of thinking about that as you listen to both of our presentations. So tonight, the comprehensive plan from Chris.
Thank you, Director Sheets, and welcome back, Chris.
Thank you.
One more time.
Yeah, it's
Fun stuff.
not every day that I get to present 2 topics in this meeting.
Lucky.
So, in just a second.
Next time, we'll make sure to have you do 3.
Oh, I look forward to it. Okay. Okay. Well, let's get into it. There's a lot of ground to cover here. Today we're providing a status report of all the action items in this plan, the comprehensive plan adopted in 2012, that have been executed thus far. However, I'm going to give a little bit of background on what the plan is, why we have a comprehensive plan, and what goes into its creation. Hopefully that will be a helpful background to this. A comprehensive plan is the standard mechanism for long-term planning and zoning in the United States. Comprehensive plans are intended to provide guidance for approximately 20 years. As for some of the reasons we have a comprehensive plan, it establishes communities' vision for the future, it ensures more orderly development, it guides decisions to ensure land use and infrastructure are in harmony with each other, and it provides legal justification for the regulations created and other actions taken by local government. Sorry. So what goes into making the plan? First, data is gathered regarding the current state or condition of the city. For instance, what challenges are we currently facing? Also, trends and forecasts are projected into the future. Is our population growing? What needs and challenges do we anticipate as it grows? Where will these people live? Where will they work? What effect will this have on facilities, processes, and infrastructure? How can we improve our current situation and facilitate adaptations to these changes? Lastly, public input about these questions is very important. Now, just because a formal plan was made in 2012 doesn't mean that updates and changes don't happen. This is a living document, and the plan is often updated as conditions or community vision changes. These conditions and changes often provide impetus to update the code. For instance, we often change the future land use map when we rezone a property. Also, the recommendations in the comprehensive plan can be very general and broad, so other more focused plans qualify as updates to this plan as well. These include the strategic plan, as mentioned by Stephanie, updated in 2017. The Downtown Vision Plan adopted in 2019, and the College Hill Vision Plan adopted in 2021. I won't dwell on these considerations a ton that are up on the screen, but worth noting is that our plan follows legislative guidelines that are set by the state of Iowa in Iowa State Code Chapter 18B. Up on the screen is the list of priorities we are required to consider in a comprehensive plan. Now, getting into the makeup of the plan, it is broken up into 3 sections. The first section covers the existing conditions. This looks at several aspects of the city, specifically those listed up on the screen. To answer the question, where are we today? Some of this also attempts to answer where we will be in the future if we maintain the status quo. The second section is the public input visioning effort, which tries to answer the question, where do we as a community want to be in the future? What issues should we tackle or address? In these public input phases of a planning effort, the public makes known their hopes and dreams for Cedar Falls. Though in this particular visioning effort, the community emphasized the priorities shown on the screen. 50% of respondents thought commercial corridor revitalization should be a priority of the plan. That's the highest priority on the left. Other priorities include management of infrastructure, attracting more businesses and industry, increasing sustainability efforts, neighborhood revitalization, increasing collaborative efforts with other jurisdictions, and improving transportation options. The last section tries to answer the question of how do we get there? This section includes a lot of suggestions and layout concepts. Each chapter in this section goes in depth on the reasoning and methods of execution for the specific action items called for in the implementation section. And what we're here to talk about is that implementation section. The implementation section has 60 recommendations or priorities that make up the how of how we arrive to the destination defined by the community in the visioning effort. Here you see a breakdown of the areas covered by the implementation action items, noting that a lot of items touch on infrastructure, transportation, and connectivity. But all recommendations cover the gamut of the areas prioritized in the visioning effort. A printout of my spreadsheet showing the status of each item should be in front of you. It was placed underneath the folders that were at your stations. Also included are the pages from the implementation action list as it appears in the comprehensive plan. Both lists are in the same order, with exception of some infrastructure items that were listed and discussed separately in the infrastructure chapter of the comprehensive plan. I'm not covering all of the action items in this presentation, but can demonstrate much that has been accomplished since 2012 in different geographies across the city. Note that some action items apply more broadly than what I'm presenting here. So as I highlight a part of the city, just know that the general action items discussed have likely been applied in many other parts of the city. In that vein, you'll see some items repeat as well. First, let's look at University Avenue. Up on the screen, you'll see University Avenue in 2012. And here it is today. You'll notice in all my slides that 2012 must have gotten more rain or something because it's so green, though I'm sure the 2012 pictures were taken just a little later in the spring than our most recent pictures were. Anyway, as for some directives in the plan that are demonstrated here, one was to enhance the University Avenue corridor, which we've done beautifully with the roundabouts and other features. Another is to promote varying scales of commercial development. Another is to practice multimodal street design. And I know the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee gives a lot of praise for the trails along University. Another is to increase stormwater capacity to better manage volume rate and water quality. As you may be aware, this was a significant improvement as this area used to experience flash flooding, where there is a lot of pavement and limited infrastructure to manage the rainfall. Much of the infrastructure was upsized to address those issues. And lastly, one of the priorities of the plan was to complete the GIS mapping for stormwater infrastructure, which was a noteworthy effort by Corey Hines, our GIS specialist. That layer in our GIS has been a very important reference for several departments here at the city, and it is updated every time new infrastructure goes in. Okay, now we'll look at downtown. Here it is in 2012, and here it is today. Now don't worry, I'll highlight the areas that have changed, especially more recently. There were several items in the plan regarding the support of commercial activity in the city. The dots on the map demonstrate recent projects that where we've promoted varying scales of commercial development. These also demonstrate how we focused commercial development in the downtown and how we've supported neighborhood-oriented commercial development. If I can turn your focus to the State Street area, a very specific directive in the plan was to redevelop State Street, which has been done beautifully with the River Place Plaza and several buildings that frame the street. There are several specific directives which we have followed and are following in regard to the whole of Main Street, stretching all the way down to Searly, so not just this corridor, but even further south. These directives include the practice of multimodal street design. Lastly, in downtown, we have guided residential development adjacent to existing development and to infill sites. This better creates a culture of regulars that support the businesses in the downtown. Before I move on, the vision plan and code adoption for downtown bears mentioning. The vision that came out of that planning effort is an outgrowth of the comprehensive plan, and efforts are ongoing to maintain the character of downtown while making mostly subtle improvements that make a big difference, as demonstrated on 4th Street up on the screen. Now let's look at a decent growth area in the Arbors, Prairie Winds, Prairie West, and Green Hill Village. Here are these neighborhoods in 2012, and here they are today. Some various items to highlight here. The Green Hill Road extension was built, and a north-south collector connecting Viking to Eric and Eric to Green Hill. Agreements are in place for the city to construct the remainder of this connection, so it's not complete as of today, but it will be relatively soon. Some other items in the plan include reserving land for open space as residential areas grow, and also plan new parks and open space in target growth areas. These are often negotiated in the development process when subdivisions are being proposed. Another general priority of the plan is to guide residential growth to designated growth areas. Lastly, as you know, connectivity is a big one that has received attention in recent years. Efforts are currently underway to get Ashworth connecting through to Aldrich Elementary. You may recall that we had a change to our subdivision code in 2020 that helps ensure that the phasing of a subdivision does not cause or create significant connectivity issues. Connectivity is an ongoing goal that staff continues to work on, specifically as staff considers updates to the major thoroughfare plan and any connectivity standards that should apply there. Here we have South Main and Green Hill in 2012, and here it is today. Worth noting is the new public safety building. That was a direct result of the discussions and directives of the comprehensive plan. As part of a location study that was done for fire, this is one of 2 locations intended to properly serve the city. Once vacated, the school district administration building on 1st Street is considered an ideal location to serve the north half of town, including North Cedar. Also, some familiar directives for supporting commercial development apply here. These sites serve as a nice, convenient commercial node, otherwise bounded by residential neighborhoods in an MU mixed-use zone. The industrial park represents a significant effort by the city to support and facilitate industry in Cedar Falls. You can see from 2012 to today, several businesses have moved in. Just a couple directives of the plan to point out here. A big to-do is to annex land west of current city limits. More on that in the next slide, actually. Another is to provide attractive contemporary sites for industrial development. Worth noting is that we have a rare policy where we pay all of the upfront costs to prep sites to be essentially shovel-ready for construction. This has led to expansion of many local companies, such as Ashley Furniture, who has their regional distribution center here. Expansion of Hawkeye Corrugated Box who more than doubled their square footage in Cedar Falls, an expansion of Zyberg North America, an ag equipment company that complements the John Deere business here. Other notable expansions include Air King Filtration, D. Laporte, Eurofins Environment Testing, Kubica with their 50,000 square foot facility, and several trucking companies. Our approach has certainly kept companies here, and I understand we're also attracting several companies who have not had a presence here prior. Due to these trends, we can expect that in the next year or so, further annexation and expansion is expected for this industrial park. This slide is just a general demonstration of the activity around residential growth in the city. So highlighted in orange are sites where either construction is underway or they are in some stage of preliminary discussions or advanced in the approval process. Again, here's the big to-do of annexing the portion of land west of the city limits. Note that the areas highlighted in blue have been annexed since 2012. And the area to the west, bounded by the yellow line, marks the area that drains towards Cedar Falls. This is a natural growth area that can be more easily served by our facilities and infrastructure. It is not required in the plan that we annex these areas at any specific point in time, nor that we are limited to these areas. These are simply the next logical areas for growth as we test the limits of our current boundaries. Contrastly, extending beyond the yellow line may represent a more significant cost, as those areas won't be as easily served by our current infrastructure. Some other directives in the plan demonstrating our efforts in residential developments include that we ensure connectivity to current and potential developments, that we attempt to reserve land for open space and parks in new subdivisions, and many highlighted areas demonstrate a variety of housing options. Most notably are condo apartments under construction on Cedar Heights Drive, some townhomes north of Green Hill, and a cottage court project here in downtown. As you know, our town really prides itself on the trail system and bike network. Here's a quick look at the bike plan, which demonstrates the completion of some plan directives and some ongoing items the city is working on. Here we see a multi-use trail that circumnavigates North Cedar, though I should mention, as per the intent of the plan, this may need more attention if and when we grow further north. Another directive of the plan is to enhance Round Street and Center Street with complete street features. The recent design of Center Street also incorporates natural infrastructure with swales and rain gardens as part of the stormwater system in North Cedar. Now looking at the southern part of town, there are a couple directives about new trails and trail connectivity, which was a strong consideration in our update of the bike plan. Many of these connections have already been constructed or are underway. As for College Hill, seeing 2012 and comparing to today, not a lot has actually changed. Though a specific directive in the plan for College Hill was to review and revise the existing design guidelines, including the zoning code. This effort was started in 2020, and the vision plan for College Hill was adopted in May 2021. There's a lot about that vision plan to be excited about. You can see an example up on the screen of changes the public would like to see. We have seen some minor changes to the College Hill Overlay Code since 2012, particularly related to parking. However, the visioning effort and subsequent adoption of a new zoning code related to College Hill are more clearly what was intended in the comprehensive plan. Part of that includes a general concern in the comprehensive plan and public visioning efforts about how to address unique issues identified on the Hill and how to more effectively handle and fill the transitional areas between the upper and lower Hill. It suffices to say that, that there is still more to be discussed and performed on this action item. I have only presented examples of where the directives of the comprehensive plan have been applied. There is more information in the spreadsheet provided in the packet or in the printouts provided to you. Of the 60 action items, here's a simplified breakdown of the status of those items. You'll notice that only 8 items have been done and are over with. There are 8 other items that are pending action and a lot of items that are ongoing. In short, there is still plenty to be done. Up on the screen is a list of 8 items that have been completed. Some of these have already been mentioned or discussed. There are notes about each of them in the spreadsheet. And here are the 8 items where no action has been taken. I should mention it is okay, or rather expected, that some items are pending at this point. It is often an indication that either conditions have changed or they simply have not yet risen to a level of priority where action is taken. And with that, as for formal staff recommendation, this is brought forward for discussion purposes at this time. So there's no formal recommendation today. As Stephanie mentioned, at your September 5th meeting, you will discuss the Future Forward strategic plan, where further relevant discussion is anticipated. The schedule of various planning efforts is anticipated to be discussed at goal setting this year. With that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you. All right, I'll turn it over to council. Any questions that you want to get answered, info you want to try to get? Councilmember DeBurr?
Well, twice you mentioned that the College Hill Vision Plan was adopted in May of ’21. I thought we just received and filed that. I didn't think we adopted it because there was a lot of problems with it, the area being too large. But yeah, you mentioned twice that it was adopted.
That was my understanding from what's in the public records. Is there any understanding otherwise?
We can double check that for you, but Chris did look through information before he was presenting tonight.
I don't remember.
I recall it being adopted because it was a very large constituency of residents in here. We adopted it and then something happened afterwards, but I recall it being adopted.
I know there was some discussion about moving forward with that, with the directives of that vision plan, but the actual plan, as I understand, was adopted.
Yes, Councilmember Cruz.
I think we need to really look into that, this testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
I, like Susan says, I'm pretty certain we didn't fully adopt, we received and filed, had discussions and concerns about property rights possibly being taken away with the rezoning and the scope of the area focuses around the hill, and we have a student-centric university right there and that sort of thing. So there are concerns with the visioning as it was put together.
I just wanted to clarify, the vision plan was not a zoning document. There have been no zoning changes at this point.
We'll go back and check the YouTube footage, make sure that that is correct. Check the public records, it's all there. Are there questions that are pertinent to the 2012 comprehensive plan, information you'd like to get, or more updates?
Mr. Hard?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Schultz.
Mr. Seavey, what is the thoughts on annexing in the west? Residential or commercial or industrial or a collage of all of the above?
It's a great question. The collage of all of the above is probably more accurate. A lot of it, in terms of current plans to annex, most of what we've considered so far is for the industrial park, but there's plenty of areas, that were delineated there that could easily be for residential and commercial and other uses. So a lot of it depends on how we grow and when we grow and where we grow. So As we start to test those limits, we'll probably be placing, relatively similar or transitional land uses next to each other. So a lot of it depends on the context of each neighborhood and those boundaries.
I appreciate this, and I'm sure people that are watching and interested in what we're trying to accomplish in the city over the next up to 20 years. So I won't go down the entire list. Just a couple of things that I've been asked about throughout the city. And you note one in here about a 90-degree at University and Union. And I think it says that it's not in the consideration yet. And what's that going to look like, or what's the thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Something that really hasn't been looked at really seriously by our engineering department as of yet. But part of that is because we haven't really grown into that area yet. It's this idea of, at least as I read it in the comprehensive plan, of the University Avenue turns southwest and is southwest out of the city, continually. Turning that to be 90 degrees to Union is what it has in mind. If that's, but we don't really have a context for that yet because we haven't grown into the area that the plan was intending.
Okay.
That makes
I'll
sense?
just jump in a little bit about that. Typically we look at intersection designs when the road has met its useful life. And also, as Chris said, when we grow into that area. So neither one has been met yet with the pavement that's in place. And so when that comes to be, if we're looking at Union Road or we're looking at University Avenue, we'll look at that intersection. And engineering will study that, what is the most effective design. And then, like we've done with other intersections, we talk about what those alternatives are for the council to consider.
Well, can I ask a question
Yeah,
on that?
Councilmember DeBoer.
When we were talking about doing Union Road next year, is it not that far south? Is it just the Union Road further north?
It's a section from West 27th south to University, correct? If you recall, due to construction prices, that was one of the projects that
Right.
got pushed out of the CIP to, I believe, the following year, like 28 or 29. So that is something we'll look at.
In like 28 or 29?
Correct.
Okay.
Councilmember Cruz?
Then along with that, roundabouts or other style of intersections will all be considered,
Correct.
lanes, bike lanes, all that. Okay, thank you.
Right. Other questions about pertaining to items on the comprehensive plan?
I'll just
Yes,
ask
go ahead.
one other,
Councilmember
that, again, we could go down the list here and talk all night, because it's a lot of exciting
Indeed.
opportunities. Rainbow Drive has been a main arterial between Waterloo and Cedar Falls for decades. That's changed over the years. There still is plenty of traffic on that. It's listed here to, I forget the terminology, enhance. What's the consideration of enhancement on Rainbow Drive?
Yeah, the directive of the plan is to enhance Rainbow Drive with complete street features, typically bike lanes and otherwise. Now, that was a strong consideration of the when we were going through the bike plan. Part of the issue is that a lot of Rainbow Drive is 24 feet wide, and it would have represented a very significant cost to widen that road, either from the side of acquiring more land to widen the right-of-way or otherwise. I can only speak to this from the perspective of the bike plan because that's what I worked on, but we had figured, at least from that planning process, that Grand Boulevard would be a nice alternate route out of the way of significant traffic and otherwise, still not a bad idea to have a bike route along Rainbow Drive, but that's a cost item. That would be a different consideration.
That's where my thinking was too. It's what's the plan? How are we going to accomplish that if that's what we end up trying to achieve? So, all right, thank you.
Yep.
Other items? All right, yes, Director Sheets.
I can clarify on the original question about the College Hill plan and if that was adopted. At the meeting on May 3rd of 2021, there was a motion by council to receive and adopt that plan. There was a motion to amend it. However, that motion then failed after discussion, and so the plan was adopted.
Can you,
Those were the May 3rd, 2021 meeting minutes.
does it have a vote that it was? 5-2, 4-3?
Let's see.
I'm just curious.
Those voting aye for passing it were Harding, Dara, Dunn, Miller, and against were Cruz, Sires, DeBoer.
Okay, thank you. All right. Other questions on this comprehensive plan? All right, you're off the hook. You're good to go.
Thank you.
And with that, we will reconvene at 7, and I am now calling this meeting adjourned.
Excellent job.
Hey, big envelope, just one envelope. Big envelope.